Well, welcome to the Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm Rich Mellon. Tonight we have from the incredible Republic of Texas, we have a fellow trapper, Nick Fallecker. Nick, thank you for joining us and welcome to the program.
Rich, it's an honor. I own a lawn business, so during the day when I'm cutting grass, I listen to you guys. I listen to every trapping podcast I can, any content I can download. Between you guys and the Meteor guys, I'm like, well, I guess we're just going to have to work 4 days a week instead of 5 because there's nothing to listen to.
You know what? I started, I think it was actually going on one of our trips to the NTA, and it was like 36 hour drive one way. And so we started listening to podcasts, and they're very addictive. After a while, it's like, why did I ever listen to radio?
Oh, I know, most definitely. And you learn so much. I like the real informative ones. I just started listening to audiobooks because I just did a trip from West Texas here to Central Pennsylvania to go on an elk hunt with my dad. And then I bow hunted up there for the rest of the week. And then I went down to Kentucky for me and a buddy of mine that I met when I first joined the military. We've been hunting in Kentucky at his mom and dad's house on that farm since 2005. And that's an annual trip. We go hunt the rut. We bow hunt the rut, and then rifle season opens up on Saturday. And then we go on doe patrol on Sunday usually and fill our tags, and got a full freezer right now.
That's always good.
It takes me about a week to butcher everything.
I get a kick out of you guys. You go 2005, like that's a long time ago. You sent me a little blurb on your history there. You were born 2 years after I graduated high school. I'm feeling like an old dog around here, let me tell you.
Oh, I was at the VA today, and the guy said something about 1986, and I kind of leaned my head around the corner. And I said, "Yeah, that was 7." And you should have heard him. He's like, "Oh my God, these young whippersnappers, they're already retired. How old am I?"
Yeah. Well, you were born in PA.
Yes. I was born in the north of Pittsburgh. Yeah, about 55 miles north of Pittsburgh, in a little. The town with the hospital is called Butler, Pennsylvania. And I grew up in Shakora, which is right next to the hometown of Jim Kelly of the Buffalo Bills, the 4-time AFC champion. No Super Bowls, though.
I guess that means a lot to you fellas, because when we were in Texas here back in October, we watched our first ever college game.
Oh, really?
It was when the Aggies beat the Tide, which.
Oh yeah.
I'm just repeating what I was told. It was like it was a big deal, and I know the guy that we were hunting with, the outfitter, he was excited as all heck because I guess he was an Aggie. Yeah, he was an Aggie, and it was actually exciting watching how excited he was, and he was phoning his dad and his mom and his the rest of his family. Then they'd be calling back and forth while this game was going on. It was pretty funny.
Oh yeah. There's. You don't see a lot of college football. There's college football up there. We had Penn State growing up and Pitt, but there was nothing that rivaled Steeler football. Yeah. So the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL Steeler Nation is there for a reason. They call Dallas the America's team, but I think there's a lot of debate go on there because the Pittsburgh Steelers travel well. And there's almost in every city in the United States, there's a Steeler bar on Sunday afternoon where everybody wearing black and gold twirling a terrible towel. And it's a phenomenon, unlike you'd ever see if you really dug into it. It's cool. Pretty crazy.
How big is Pittsburgh? I have no idea.
Oh hell, I have no idea either. I haven't been there. I left for the military in '97, and I go back and visit, and that is it.
Like 1 million people?
I think it's bigger than that. They, I know I follow the politics a lot because a lot of the stuff dictates veterans benefits, and especially when I was active duty, because those guys, they were the ones that said, hey, you need to go do this. Hey, you need to go do that. So I try to follow it and be educated on it as much as possible. And PA politics, there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania, and 11 of them are blue. And the state usually goes with those 11 counties. There's 10 over there by Philadelphia and Allegheny County where Pittsburgh is. And all the other counties, almost all of them are red.
How is that?
So,
like it happens here too. Like you take the entire province of British Columbia, which would be, I don't know how many Pennsylvanias put together, and
probably a lot.
Yeah, it might be a half a dozen or more Pennsylvanias put together. There's a wart on its buttocks down on the corner there called Vancouver.
Vancouver, exactly.
And like I forget, there's just under 5 million people live in British Columbia, and I think like 3.5 million live there. And so whatever Vancouver wants, Vancouver gets, and so they up here it's liberal, and it's funny because the colors are reversed. It's red. Liberals are red, and the conservatives are blue.
Anything to confuse everybody,
I know. But you said it mouthful though when you said that you like to keep current. I mean, it is so important today. People are not current about anything, and we all talked about for forever that education was the answer. We'd have no more. Nobody would smoke, nobody would drink. There'd be no unwanted pregnancies. There'd be no drunk driving or anything like that. Once we were all educated, well, we now have the world in our hand. The entire world, all the knowledge of the entire world in our hand, and we're stupider than ever.
Exactly. I'll tell you, I always tell people, I said, if things were ever to go south, the city folks would be moving out into the country in search of basic needs.
Oh.
And most of them wouldn't make it. And the ones that did would either conform or they wouldn't make it.
Exactly.
That's just the way it is.
Your options are narrowing here, guys.
Exactly.
It's funny when Sandy was with the Royal Bank of Canada, she was an area vice president. She had 20 people under her, and they were all age of her own kids. Okay, so she said, "I'm the work mom, I'm the home mom." She said, "I never get away from any of them. They're all in their mid 30s to just about 40." And the 20 of them, she said, like there are very few of them had any life skills outside of what they could do on their phone or do in the city and that. And they didn't make any bones about it that if the wheels came off and the world went to hell, they were headed to Sandy's place because they knew that they could. She made sure that they stayed alive and got fed.
You better go pick up a couple more mauls for splitting wood. You'd never have to cut another log in your life.
I know. It was so funny though because they were dead serious. That came out. We were having just before she left there a couple years ago. We were having an event out at our place out here and they're all dead serious. They were coming out here because Sandy would take care of them. It was like, I would have no more said that when I was, by the time I turned 18, that I was looking for somebody to take care of me than go jump off the bridge, right?
Oh yeah. When I was 18, it was all wide eyes and I was, I've been working since I was 12 years old. I've started with a paper route like a lot of hardworking folks do in the United States, and then you work up in the grocery store, or you work on a construction crew, or you do both like I did. During the summers I'd work construction and stuff like it, just being a helper. And you learn a work ethic.
Yep.
And once you get that work ethic down, when I was in 10th grade in high school, they said, "What are you going to do? What college are you going to go to?" I just started laughing. I said, "I drink so much beer now." I said, "There's no way in the world I'd ever make it through college. So I'm going to join the military."
Figured you'd fit in there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I figured I'd learn something cool. So I went down to the recruiter and they said, well, my parents asked me because my dad was in the Navy for a little stint right towards the end of Vietnam. And my mom was in the Army Reserves, and all my uncles served in Vietnam on my grandma's side and on my dad's side. And on my grandpa's side, they all served in World War II.
Oh, wow.
And it's a very huge military tradition in our family is join the military. So I was like,
Right.
well, that's what I'm doing. I mean, I've been putting camo on as soon as I could pick my clothes out in the morning. I was dressed like Rambo, ready to go. And God forbid when I got my BB gun, because there wasn't a rabbit safe in the air where I could walk. There wasn't a rabbit or a Tweety bird safe. I kill more birds than a feral cat. And so I joined the Air Force, and my mom and dad were like, well, my uncle says he was a combat Marine, and he was in Quezon in '68, and he got out of the Marine Corps. Oh yeah, he's a tough dude. So he got out of the Marine Corps and went home, and he said, I was home a week. He goes, I didn't have nobody shooting at me, nobody yelling at me, nobody telling me what to do. So I joined the Army for another 24 years. He said, I went back to Vietnam 2 more times. And he said, if you're going to do it, don't do it how I did it. Learn a trade. And so I went into the recruiter's office, and he says, so what, I said, what kind of jobs do you have open? And he gave me this list of jobs, and there's a bunch of them on there that I thought would be cool. But now that, and looking back on it, I'm glad I didn't pick those ones because they're terrible. So I picked the satellite communications wideband systems, and I said, well, I'm going to do satellite communications. I said, this is right up my alley. And I was a combat comm guy for 16 years in the Air Force, and then I went and transitioned over to Air Control Squadron, which is basically the air traffic controllers in the airspace. So they got tankers at a certain level, they got fighters at a certain level, and they bring everybody up and down. And then I got to here in Texas in 2013, and I was assigned the dreaded base communications, which that was all foreign to me. And I ended up being a project manager and doing a bunch of the base telephone system stuff and running network infrastructure shops and things like that. I mean, I was really good at managing, but when it came to the ones and zeros and punching the keyboard, that wasn't my thing. So I once I got out, right before I retired, I got moved to the Inspector General's office and was doing inspections and compliance and stuff like that. And I started a little lawn business on the side to pay for the zero turn that I bought from my new house.
Oh yeah.
And that has morphed into, I think I started that in 2015, and we just put the business up for sale this year. So I'm going to sell that business and go into real estate because I really value the freedom that I have with the lawn business because it's seasonal and it usually cuts off right before the rut. And then I got all winter to trap. And once everybody starts rubbing out, then I start cutting grass again. And I mean, who could ask for a better situation?
No kidding.
Besides my wife.
Why are you selling?
I'm going to get into real estate. It's just, when it's 100 degrees out and you're out there running a weed eater and mowing a yard, it's just getting to be a little taxing on me. I've flirted with heat stroke a couple of times, heat exhaustion, and I'm 43 years old, and I've put my body through enough over the military career and into this little lawn business. I think it's time to start focusing on some little more wages and a lot. I'm a real people person, so I think that's going to suit me well. And I've had several people tell me the same thing, so I'm going to give it a shot. And if it don't work out, then maybe I'll open a tannery because I'm not working for anybody else. I'll tell you that right now, Rich.
I'll tell you the one thing. The only good thing about getting gray in the whiskers is that usually when you get old, you end up with money. So yeah,
exactly.
Life gets fun. It might be a lot harder to climb those mountains or whatever than it ever was, but you end up with the rewards if you've worked hard through your life in that. I started in construction when I was 12. and would work, after schools and weekends and of course all through the summer and Christmas holidays, all that kind of stuff. And I learned, you talked about a work ethic. I learned work ethic really quick. If they handed me a shovel, well, I made sure that I had, 3 scoops of gravel in the air at a time. And pretty quick, they decided I was too valuable to be on that shovel. So then they'd go teach me something, and I'd be learning, how to build and stuff like that. I figured that out, that out pretty quick, and it served me well. I went through and I got my trade and construction and that kind of stuff. But would you recommend for somebody to do what you did and go through the military?
Oh, most definitely. It's the most rewarding experience I've ever had in my life. I mean, I've traveled the world. The only continent I haven't been on is Australia and Antarctica. Now,
I have a great story about Antarctica.
Now, granted, I haven't been to the really nice places of a lot of these places, but I did get to live in Europe for a couple of years, where I really got ingrained with the Canadians, playing ice hockey with the base team at Ramstein, and
that's a dead giveaway.
I'll tell you
that's a dead giveaway when you say ice hockey, because here's just hockey.
Oh yeah, it's hockey. Yeah. So it was really fun because the NATO guys from Geilenkirchen, the Canadian guys, they always put on a big hockey tournament every year, and we'd travel up there and go to it. And after our game, you'd go back in the locker room, and there'd be sliced oranges and a case of Moosehead for every team after every game. And you start looking at the rosters, and you see the youngest guy on the roster is like 23 years old, right? And the second youngest guy is 42. And they would wipe the ice with everybody. And the American hockey style is a lot more rough and tumble hitting, but the finesse of the Canadian hockey style, once we played them, the first game I ever played against them, and I played defense, and I loved fighting, and I loved hitting, and I loved the penalty box. Apparently, this one old Canadian guy kind of skated over to me, and he goes, "Don't do that again, because if you do, you're going to have problems." And I was just like when my dad said, "Take your glasses off, let's go outside," when I was a teenager. I said, "No, I'm not doing that." So I wised up real quick. The guys that didn't, I got to watch what happened to them, and I'm a quick learner. Hopefully people would understand that I'm a quick learner. So I never had to go through that, because those boys could put a puck wherever they wanted, and they could hit you whenever you never knew they were there. And it was the most amazing time of I was 23, 24 years old. And I just had so much fun with those guys. I really, really did.
You're one of the guys that could learn, but from watching your buddy pee on the electric fence, you didn't have to pee on the electric fence.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. The military gave me so much. I learned so much coming from a small town in Western Pennsylvania. It opened my eyes, and the guys that, I go back home and I see them, and they all want to hear stories because they never left. And I think that's something that everybody should do.
I totally
get out and about.
Yep.
Get out and about and see different things. I mean, when I moved out of Pennsylvania and I finally got to my first duty station where I could go hunting, the guys were like, "Hey, we're going hunting in the morning." I said, "No, you're not. It's Sunday." And they said, "What do you mean it's Sunday?" I said, "Pennsylvania, you can't hunt on Sunday. You can't hunt on Sunday." And they're like, What are you going to church?" I was like, "Well, obviously not." I said, "You guys hunt on Sundays in Georgia?" They're like, "Oh yeah, we do." So that was lesson 1. Lesson 2 was I showed up and I was wearing an orange snowsuit, like all good Pennsylvanians wear first day of rifle season, the carrot suit. And they looked at me, they're like, "What in the world are you doing?" And I said, "This is the only orange I have." They said, "You wear that hunting?" I said, "In Pennsylvania, you have to, or you end up getting shot." Because we got 1 million people in the woods opening day,
Yeah.
And they said, "Yeah, all you need here is a hat and a vest." I said, "Oh, okay." So I saved up some money and bought a $4 hat and a $6 vest, and then I wasn't so ridiculous looking whenever I went in the woods.
That's you just, that story just encapsulates what I enjoy the most about traveling, is getting in with somebody who it's their life. That's where they live. Lots of times when we go hunting, wherever we've hunted in the world, we like to get there with, either with the owner of the operation or with the PH or the guide or whatever. We want to live with them and their family and really get to see the life. That's the cool part.
Yeah. The culture is the key.
Yeah.
Once you learn the culture, it broadens your scope to trying new things in where you're comfortable. And once you do that, it opens so many doors to anything, deer hunting, business. I mean, there's so many opportunities that you're missing because you're so laser focused. And once you open that focus up, you see different avenues that will help you succeed in everything you do.
And to never be afraid to try something new. That is like, I mean, I've always been a kind of person that tried stuff, but the lady I married, like, oh my God, like, I mean, when they say, who wants to jump, tie this rubber band around your leg and jump off the bridge, she's got a first one with her hand up. It's a tough gig, man, following around with that girl. Let me tell you, she is eager to try everything. And oh my God, life is so much fun when you do that. Like, it is just so much fun to be able to go out and just go give it all a try. You win some, you lose some, but so what? You get to a point in life like where I'm at now, is that there would be times when I failed earlier in life at whatever, and that would haunt me for a long time. Like, I mean, nobody ever needed to criticize me. I was my own biggest critic, right? And now I'm a lot more relaxed and laid back about it, because about 98% of the mistakes you make in life, nobody else knows about but yourself. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Just as long as you don't make them the second time. That's right.
I do everything on TV, so I mean, it's like I have to be careful. The only thing I have to be careful about on TV or on podcasts is my mouth. Being a construction worker and owning a company, a construction company, and all that, I could make the devil blush.
Oh yeah, believe me. Being in the military for 20-some years.
Yeah, exactly. We could sit here and trade insults, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Maybe learn some new languages.
Before we started, and I was waiting for that link, I sat down in my chair and I closed my eyes and I kind of folded my hands and centered myself, and I just kept saying, don't swear, don't swear, don't swear.
I'll tell you a story. We were working on a sportsman show. Me and my partner we were in a hunting TV show for 20 years. And anyway, he was my business partner. We did a lot of seminars all together. We're at this big sportsman show, and we were the headliners. So they wanted us to go do this radio talk show. And so we had to go to downtown Calgary, and we're sitting outside the booth, and that it was all an enclosed room that they took us into the studio. First out walks this big guy. He's a Samoan, and he's like this wide and this tall. Your average Samoan, just a big guy.
Yeah.
And he looks and he says, he has that really cool accent that they have, and he says, well, what are you guys doing here? And we said, well, we're here to talk with Jerry on CJ, and he opens the door and yells back. He says, hey Jerry, he says, there's two old dudes out here to talk to you. I think I was about 45 at the time. I was like, oh. So we go in there, and Jerry is he's one of these really fast talkers, fast, and he's hilarious, and he's loud, and he's aggressive, and you think it'd be really cool to be being interviewed by him and everything. So I'm sitting there talking to him. He turns the microphone off, and so we're off the air. Every word out of his mouth is F. He could use it as a noun, a verb, an adverb, an adjective, like every word. Turns it back on and it goes away. And I'm like you. I'm like, don't swear, don't say F, don't say F. I was distraught for a little while. Oh my God! And then I got in trouble with one of his co-hosts was a lady, and she was like a 20-something young girl and all that, you have to know me. Like, I don't take life too seriously. And they were talking about, what was there to see? Like, what if the ladies wanted to come? We were talking about, there was this giant houseboat there that they put on Shuswap Lake and over in BC. And I don't know, it's 60 feet long or something. It's just gigantic, right? And you live on it for out on the water. And she says, so, what can you do on this thing? I said, well, you can, there's a water slide off the top. You go swimming, it's 2 stories tall. And well, what's there just for ladies to? I says, well, it's got a built-in vacuum. Hey folks, Rich from Trapping Inc. TV here, and it's no secret that I'm a big fan of coffee. Our friends at Old Smokes smoke roast their coffee beans over wood fires. You have no idea how good coffee can taste until it's smoked coffee. Did you know that studies have shown that just the smell of fresh coffee can boost brain activity? Yeah, it's that good. Sandy and I have teamed up with Old Smokes Coffee to make our own Trapping Inc. coffee blend. Let me introduce you to Wolverine, an ultra dark roast coffee bean smoked over maple wood fires. This is the pure, uncut trapper's fuel that keeps us laughing and trapping all day long. If you'd like to try our special blend, you can find it at www.trappinginc.com/shop. If dark roast isn't your thing, Old Smokes has 5 different coffee roasts from light to extra dark, each roasted over a different wood for a unique flavor. Right now, you can order from their online store and use our promo code RICH, that's RICH, and get 10% off your entire order. Just go to www.oldsmokescoffee.com. That's OLE smokescoffee.com and use the promo code RICH. That is promo code RICH for 10% off your entire order. And now let's get back to today's show. I was pretty sure she was going to swear.
Oh my goodness. Me and my wife, we go back and forth like that. I mean, we've been married for 18, almost 19 years. And my wife is definitely not she's become the outdoor type, but she was never the outdoor type, and hell, she didn't even kill her first deer until we moved to Texas.
Oh, wow.
So when we moved out here, I moved out here by myself with the kids and my daughters, they're 5 and they were 5 and 7, I think, when we moved out here, and now they're almost 16 and 18. But I got on a deer lease, and that year I couldn't go to Kentucky, so I shot a good buck on Veterans Day, and then April came in after Christmas. And I said, well, let's go. We got to shoot some does. So all 4 of us in the deer blind, these does came out in the field, and she shot her first doe, and she's kind of like, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And then I grabbed the rifle and I shot a doe, and before I could get the gun on safe, both my kids run out the blind. They run out there and they're grabbing these deer, and one of them was still kicking. they're pulling on the legs. They're like, let's drag him down here, Dad. What do we do next? And that's ever since then, we're going to go out this weekend because I missed opener because of the elk hunt with my dad. So I'm going to take everybody out this weekend, and we're going to go out there and fill some tags.
Oh, that's good.
Top off another freezer that's fur.
I love introducing kids to stuff because they're just little savages. There is nothing that they won't try or do.
Oh yeah.
I've always said this, and I forget who told me. Old fella anyway. And it was like, he said, I tell you what, boy, he says, kids and dogs, they ain't nothing you don't teach them. And it's the truth. That's the truth. If you teach them to be scared of something or not to try stuff and all that, you're teaching every time. They're watching you every time you're doing stuff. And we just spent the weekend out with 6-year-old grandson came out again this year. He had such a terrible trip last year. Well, he didn't know.
I saw that episode. Little Tater's got a skunk. He wasn't happy.
Well, he didn't know. He was just he everything was so new to him, right? And he's not like his sister is 2 years younger than him, and I call her Chaos. Like, honest to God, like that's her nickname is Chaos. And I mean, she just charges headlong into life, like boom. But he's always been a little bit of a setback. Check it all out. Now this year, 1 year difference. and he's been out there before, and that he's just so excited. So excited, and you had a great trip, and oh my God, did we picked up a lot of fur in that, so it was awesome. But it is so cool to take kids out and show it. I mean, I forget, I get, it's that all men, I think at heart, or a lot of men are efficiency experts, right? You're always trying to cut a corner or get 6 things laid out so you could do all 6 at one time, and that kind of stuff. And that's the way I get out on the trap line, is I get really, really efficient. And I mean, God only knows when you have, hundreds and hundreds of snares and sets and everything that you got out there, and you keep them up here. And I can't remember what I had for supper yesterday. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know where all my snares are. And, you tend to allow that muscle memory to take over, right? And having him there, having a new person there, and the questions they ask, that is so good for me, because it makes me think,
slows you down a little bit, takes you off of autopilot. Most definitely.
Yeah. It certainly does. Well, let's talk about how you started trapping. Okay. You was it a thing that you did like in Pennsylvania?
No, actually I didn't. My grandparents did, my granddad did, my dad did. So I have my dad's brother, Dave. He was like me. As soon as he could graduate and join the Army, he did. And he ended up in Fairbanks.
Oh, wow.
And then he moved down to Anchorage and was fishing out of Cordova. And then he was trapping mink on Copper River. And he would trap other things, I guess. But mink trapping was something that he loved to do. And it always stuck with me. Uncle Dave's coming back. He'd always come back in the wintertime, and he'd bring home these giant coolers full of crab legs and halibut and salmon, moose, caribou. I mean, it was just, we couldn't wait for Uncle Dave to come home. And that always stuck with me. So when I got to Texas, I got on a deer lease, and we had a coyote problem like everybody does. And we hunt primarily around feeders because it's so thick, it's almost impossible to still hunt. And the coons were eating me out of house and home on my feeder. So I bought some dog-proof coon traps, and I had some old, I think they were 1.5s, maybe, I don't know. They were really little, really, really small, single long spring, basically mink traps. So I tried that, and utter failure, pocket sets and stuff like that, just trying to thin the coons out. And then I got the dog proofs, and I started cleaning them up. And I said, well, I need to figure out how to trap a coyote. So I had a dove field that a friend let me use, and I put some sets around that. And finally I caught my first coyote. And I think I caught her in a Duke 1 3/4. And she broke the dog off of it. And I was so mad about that. So that, I got her, I got a Euro mount done over her head, her skull. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. So then I started watching everything I could possibly watch. The big thing that got me started was watching Alan Probst with F&T. And I started consuming that every chance I got. And I actually picked up watching you guys and watching not Jeff Dunlap, Clint Locklear and Jeff Dunlap, both of them actually. So I just started consuming as much content as I possibly could. And then I got on the F&T website, and my wife goes, "How much money did you spend on that credit card?" So here I am now.
It's an investment, honey. It's an investment.
Exactly. These things are not going to go bad.
Yeah, no,
that's what I tell. No. And my
Once
dad sent me
lifetime.
down. Exactly. And I've got, I went home on leave, and I ended up bringing back a whole bunch of 110s and 110 Conibears, and a couple 220s, a couple 330s, and then some. I was like, these traps just aren't big enough to handle. I mean, they're great for coons on the creeks, but it's just not handling everything I need to handle. And a buddy of mine's like, "Hey man, go check out these MB 650s and 550s." So I started looking at those, and I was like, "These are a lot better than, all the mistakes I've made through learning, which were many. I mean, I've walked a solid half a mile with a 220 on my boot to go back to the truck to get the setters so I could get them off, and and then I started running strictly. I found some used traps on the Facebook, and I bought them up, and I ended up with I don't know, I probably got 8 or 9 dozen of 650s and number 4s on 8 foot of chain with drags. And this year, and that's why I primarily run that. And snares are my money maker for sure when it comes to putting fur in the shed in Texas.
Are you allowed killing snares?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So in Texas, the regulations are fur bearers 1 November. You can trap them however you want, except for I believe your conibears have to be your 330s and 220s and stuff. They have to be so close to water if you're just going to set them on dry land. Other than that, coyotes, bobcats, and mountain lions, no close season, no limit, not considered fur bearers. And everything else is, Texas is the land opportunity. It's kill them all because they just keep making them. There's no shortage of them because we're over 90% privately owned. So you're not going to deal with the stuff like they deal with in Montana and in New Mexico.
Yeah.
So if I'm on a ranch and the rancher says, "Hey, I got coyotes," I have to be the good steward, and I have to ask the questions. How many dogs do you have? Are they tied up? What about the neighbors? I've got to ask all these questions because, you catch a dog in a snare, and I don't put deer stops on my snares very often. Now, if I'm working a high fence or something where there's big money whitetails on it, then yes, I do. Just if I catch one by the foot, he'll be able to get out. It won't be an issue. And we also have the massive pig problem as well. And I've caught several pigs in snares. So I was looking at the rams and the power rams, and I'm really debating on buying some of those just to give them a shot. But I put
what do you want to use it for? For coyote and bobcat?
For coyote, bobcat, yeah.
Yeah. The number 1 or the wolf master, those both work really good. We use the number 1s for coyotes. Some people use the wolf master for coyotes. We're actually doing a big study here in Alberta. We have south of me, 6-7 hours, is a little town of Vegreville, and that is where all of the Fur Institute of Canada does all the studies and testing on traps and does all the certifications. They do the certification for anywhere in the world that wants them.
Yeah.
And if you're, like we're a signatory to the AHEDIS agreement, so all of our traps have to be certified. Now they're doing studies on snares, and we go at it differently than a lot of the places in the States where the snares can't be lethal. We're trying to make ours extra lethal. Like we're working on big springs and we're working on the different ways to I got a spring laying here somewhere. But we're trying to make it so that when something lands in a snare, it's not there very long and it's dead. We're trying to, I don't know, there's one here. There's a big old coyote spring here anyway. But we have 2 different systems for doing it. And one is the ram, and it works really good. The only thing I think that we're gonna change on it is it's going to go probably to a tooth cam lock on it. Right now it is just a noose that just slides, and you've got that big spring open. But that spring can also be like a bow, right? As the animal pulls, it can be like a bow. And if especially for a coyote or a wolf or something, if it's down low on them, like 9 times out of 10, or 8 times out of 10 anyway, when something gets in a snare, the first thing it does is just like when you try and train a dog, the puppy turns around and backs away from it, right? Well, so an animal gets in the snare and it turns around and backs away. And then that resets that snare back up to here, right? And this is where we
right
want,
under the chin.
yeah, the carotids are there. And that's always been the argument whether we should have a toothed cam lock on them or not, because that toothed cam lock, when it tightens up, if he hits that snare and takes a couple jumps forward and it tightens tight here, it's not going to reset back here. It's not going to slide.
Yeah.
Whereas something with a non-locking lock on it, or just a loop, which is what the Rams have, will, it'll loosen enough for it to be able to slide and reset. But we're finding that we're having problems with they're lasting longer than you'd think, because this is all done scientifically. Like the trappers that do it have cameras and everything is recorded and all that kind of stuff to watch what happens. It's amazing when you get sometimes with some of the and the other system then is like the Fallecker system, where you have an actual spring on the snare itself. So it's just the one I use is lights out. I wish I could find it here. It's my desk. I only create in chaos. So anyway, it's a 70-pound snare. And I think the Fallecker is 50-pound, but it spreads out to be 4 inches when it opens up. But it's on the very end of the snare, and when the animal pulls hard enough, it takes 26 pounds to set the trigger off, 26 pounds of pull, and then that opens. So it's already, like here is this a coyote was in this, okay, and you can see with this particular type of lock on it, it actually deforms the wire.
The wire.
And it becomes like its own lock right there, right? And the coyote's neck was in this. And then on this end of it here, there was a 70-pound spring that wants to be out at 4 inches, but it's restricted to that. So that helps kill very quickly. But one of the things the problems that we're having with these was with the Fallecker system, or with the springs on the wire on the snare itself, was the smaller coyotes were not always setting that snare off. And it was funny because they could review the footage of that. They'd come up and there'd be an animal, gasping its last as they walked up into their site, and they would take a look at the footage on the trail cam, and they discovered that it had actually been alive for 20 minutes or an hour in the snare, but it never pulled hard enough to set it off. But when they came up, they were scared off, and they went to jump away. And they said when that spring goes off, that coyote stands still like a gut shot animal, and its head goes down and it starts to blink, and a few seconds later it's on the ground. Yeah. That's how quick it works. But that's the only problem we've had. I mean, we do have our coyotes here, like a 23-pound coyote is female. That's pretty common. She might be 23 to 30 pounds, but males another 5 pounds on that on average. Our coyotes are not big, but they got pretty nice fur on them.
we get some really big coyotes. My biggest in the last 4 years was 52 pounds, I believe, and I caught him on a high fence. I put the snare out, and it was such a small little dig out underneath the high fence that I figured I'll probably catch a coon here or a possum. And when I rolled up on him, I was like, oh my goodness, look at the size of this guy. And I had him straight, perfect neck catch, and my loop wasn't very big. I figured I was going to catch something smaller. And, I had a loop about that big. I figured, cat, a coon, a possum, something like that. And his head went right through it. And when I got up there, he was stone cold dead.
Oh yeah. Yep.
We do get, some of the bigger holes, when you put your snare on the fence. I mean, snare and barbed wire and snare and high fence are totally different animals. When a coyote goes into it, he puts his feet down, and a lot of times his head and his feet, and then all of a sudden now you got a hip caught dog. waiting on you when you get there.
Right.
And
Right.
and it's just terrible. I mean, I don't want anything to suffer any longer than it has to be honest with you.
No.
And I've had quite a few hip caught dogs my first couple of years, and then last year was pretty good. I ain't gonna lie. There's a whole bunch of, how am I gonna get that out from around his neck?
What kind of lock do you use on your snares?
I just used I buy mine from Dakota Line. I get the Dakota Line Coyote snares, and I have several with the cam lock, and I have several with the I don't even know what it's called. It's just a
slim lock,
the slim lock deal.
Yeah.
And but I put out, if I'm on a 1,200 acre high fence that I trap regularly, probably have 40 or 50 of them out. And then everywhere there's a slide, I'll put in either a dirt hole or a flat set right on the fence line, or and then I'll put another snare on the trail that comes out of the shinnery across the road and into the slide.
Slide is what you're referring to, the hole that goes underneath the fence.
The hole that goes under the fence. And a lot of times you'll catch pigs in it. I mean, I've snared pigs clear up to 250 pounds.
Wow.
And you'll have them by the back leg, or you'll have them right by the tip of the snout. And it's something else whenever you walk up on one, and there's such a problem. I mean, there's no keeping them out of anything. There's no controlling them. I don't care how many you kill. There's always going to be more move in. And it is an absolute nightmare for guys on high fence that are running exotics and running, high-end whitetails, because those whitetails can go through the same place.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
Now the big bucks won't, but when they drop their antlers, you have that possibility. And when you pay $20,000 for a deer that's going to be breeding your herd, you don't want him getting out.
No. It sounds very similar to in Africa. They say that no fence will hold a bushbuck or a warthog, and you laugh, and they say no. You build a fence and you throw a bucket of water at it. If any water gets through, a warthog will get through. Yeah.
Hey folks, Rich here with some exciting news from trappinginc.com. We were listening when you said you wanted more clothing, and we heard you loud and clear. We've expanded our clothing line, more colors, men's, ladies, and children's sizes, more variety. Living off grid gives more time for the creative juices to flow. New humorous observations are added weekly, as well as our classic Trapping Inc. logo. We have joined forces with TeePublic. You can find our TeePublic storefront from the store page on trappinginc.com. Just go to www.trappinginc.com/shop and just scroll down to find the link for our Trapping Inc. storefront. Or you can go to teepublic.com and enter Trapping Inc. TV in the search bar at the top. Check it out. Big sales every month, and you can save up to 35%. Don't miss out. Get your favorite gear today. And now let's get back to today's show.
I heard rumor this year that they had warthogs down around the border. Feral ones got out of high fence down around Ozona and areas like that.
Really?
And that's how all the exotics got to be in Texas. Most of them, when the fires came through, they had to open their fences. And I mean, the other day I was checking my trail camera and I'm looking at my trail camera. And I'm looking at this picture. I'm like, what in the world? Those are aoudad. I got two audads standing at my feeder, and I've never had that happen before. And black buck, we've killed some black buck on my deer lease down in south of Abilene. And, we have a high fence right next to our deer lease. The backside of the deer lease, it's 2,000 acres. And we get this big high fence back there. And he's got all kinds of exotics, but those little black bucks that can get out. And when they they're, no close season, no limit. I mean, if I saw one in July, I could shoot him legally and harvest it.
We hunted aoudad when we were in Texas, and it was cool. And it was funny because everybody says, it's a big thing. We don't have any fenced operations or whatever in Alberta.
Yeah.
And most of Canada, there's none of that at all. So it's always whether or not it's high fence and that you're hunting at. And we went down for free range, and we watched, the guy laughed. The outfitter laughed. He says they can jump just about anything. They can jump 6 foot standing still. And he says, but he says the rams don't even do that. He says they just hook their horns in it and they twist around until they break the wire out. And that's okay. Yeah, maybe, sometimes things are true. Sometimes people believe, and that's enough to make it true, right? We watched it. I actually have footage of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the ewes and the I don't know what you call it, lambs. I guess the ewes and the lambs were jumping this fence, and it was like a, I don't know, 3-4 foot high kind of page wire fence. I don't know, 4-inch or 5-inch square wire. And Ram come up and he just put his horns into it and he started twisting around on that. And pretty soon he walked straight through it. And I was like, I was surprised. I really was, like, a lot of power there, a lot of power. But that was them, that started from 40 of them released in Palo Duro Canyon in 1957.
Yeah.
Now they figure between
it's
Texas.
Amazing.
Well, they figure between Texas and Mexico, there are 75,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And some of these high fence guys, they have some really exotic things. We have a high fence around here that has kangaroos in it, from what I'm told.
Yeah.
And he sells them out, ostrich and things of that nature. And, if you're not checking your fences, my Lord, there's no telling what could be running around,
Oh,
yeah. And the lions out here, they love getting into a high fence. Because the mountain lions will go into a high fence and they will eat until they can't eat anymore, and then they'll eat some more. And that's one of the main reasons I run the 650, because the opportunity of me catching a lion in anywhere that I'm trapping is pretty decent. It's not super high, but it's pretty decent. And that is a bucket list animal I am looking forward to walking up on one day.
Still haven't got one?
Still haven't got one. I had so last year I had a set on a couple cow carcasses. We had some cows die, and we drug them over to the body pit. And I put a 650, and I put it usually in the crook of the neck of the cow where he lays. And then I run the chain out around and I hook it into either the pelvis. Depends on how degraded the cattle is, if it's laying there. And I check everything every 24 hours. I'm on it. Every morning I get up, I drink my coffee, and I'm on the line until about noon. I come home, skin everything, and then everybody comes home from work and gets off the bus. And I walked up to that set and I said, oh man, I got something going on here. So now I'm looking, and I could see where the drag was skipping across the ground.
Ooh.
And this is a 650 with 8 foot of chain and a big rebar drag. And I never found that trap.
Oh, really?
I never found that trap. And I asked the rancher and the owner, I said, what do you think could have done that? And I said, oh, it's probably a lion. I said, what makes you say that? And then he turned around at the lodge and pointed up on the wall. And he said, see that one right there? I shot that one eating a doe one day when I was on the tractor. He killed him with a 22. But he said, they're definitely here,
Yeah. Well,
and
they
get big.
Well, the fellow who's the taxidermist that's taking care of my aoudad, that was what he did for a living when he was younger. Was he trapped lion. I guess they were like the biggest contract lion killers in all of West Texas. They were over there at Fort Davis and that, but he went all the way up into New Mexico and all that. So then I started asking him, I said, did you ever catch a jaguar? Because that is the area there, that corner that has, I guess historically there's been as many as 60 jaguar lived there at a time or whatever. Yeah. And he said, no, he hadn't, but he had an old buddy who had. And so that was pretty cool to talk to. They're quite the animal. They go over 200 pounds.
And they got that giant head on them.
Oh, we get big cats here. I mean, Alberta's probably one of the premier areas to come for a Boone and Crockett cat. And, but 180-pound cat is a big cat. You start hitting 220, 240, that kind of thing, like a jaguar. It's like, oh man, that's a lot of cat. Holy cow.
That's a lot of cat.
Yeah.
And just like any other cat, they're, I've got a Siamese cat, and those cats they're soulless.
Oh,
If they can kill it, they're gonna kill it. Whether or not they eat it, that's a whole different story,
I tell
And
everybody. I tell everybody that's a cat owner. I says, if you ever start having chest pain, I says, you throw the cat out the door before you take your aspirin and call 911, because you don't. You're tomorrow's fancy feast, and that cat won't think a minute about it.
yeah, he's gonna start on your cheeks and work his way down. That's for sure. That's a definite.
You get a lot of coyotes in a year?
Yeah, I do. I'm between trapping them and shooting them, calling them in, shooting them with a thermal, shooting them during the day. I'm up over 80 for the 2021.
Oh, good.
And I just shot 81. I think it was 81. I have to go back and look at my records, but I killed him in opening day in Kentucky. And I heard something coming down the hill, and I looked over and I said, I can't believe this has happened. This is the second coyote I've seen since 05 in Kentucky. So I whacked him. I couldn't handle it. He wasn't prime yet either. So
yeah, he wouldn't have been.
No.
What's your number one favorite set?
So my number one favorite set outside of the snares would be I kind of call it it's kind of like a dirt hole, but if I can get away with it, and there's no shortage of cow bones laying around out here. So I'll take a cow skull or a cow bone, and I'll put some lure underneath it, depending on what time of year it is. And it's more of a curiosity set. And I'll dig out around it. I'll bed my trap real good, probably 6 inches from it. And man, they can't resist it. They see something big and white in the middle of that big brown field. They got to come check it out.
Absolutely.
And it just kills them. It really does. Every once in a while, I'll catch something in a flat set. A lot of walkthrough sets, but I usually target cats with that, because the cats like the sand, and everything out here in West Texas is going to bite you and make you bleed. So they like the sand. So I'll set it in the sand, and then I'll dress it in with some gravel. And I'll tell you what I got onto last year that really, really produced my biggest coyote last year at 48 pounds was a pipe dream set.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I had some old PVC laying around. So I want to give this a shot. And I'll be darned, I had a hell of a good dog on a pipe dream set.
Oh, that's cool.
He had one shoulder kind of rubbed out. That kind of made me sad, but he still turned out to be a heck of a dog. And that dog actually got me a whole nother ranch to trap, because the owner of the neighboring ranch was trying to kill that dog. He's seen him several times. And he talked to the owner of the ranch I was on. And then he called me, you want some property to trap? I said, yes, sir, I'd love to. He said, all right, meet me over at my house. And we drove around for 3 hours. I bet you we covered 30,000 acres. And he's like, here's the combos, and just kill them all. I said, roger that, sir. And he goes, oh, by the way, kill every pig you see. I said, roger that. I'll take care of all of it. And he's been really happy with my progress.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, they're running a lot of cattle out there, and the calves just don't stand a chance when they're dropping. And, you got 5 or 6 coyotes working one field, and, the cows, they're dropping calves, and the coyotes are snatching them up as fast as they can drop them. It's nature at its finest, but it's terrible to see on a financial situation for the rancher. Granted, everybody said they make so much money, you don't need to worry about it, but it's not about that. It's about
not the rancher. The rancher doesn't.
Exactly.
It's all the middlemen that take the big chunks out of it. My daughter has 700 head in her herd, and that I know what they make. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not big money by any means. It's a great life, and
it is.
I love my grandkids being raised there, but they're not making big money. Your coyotes, are they Western or Eastern? Like,
they're Western.
So they grade well. They're good fur.
Well, according to my fur buyer, these ain't gonna make nothing. He'll give you $8. Um, so I was working with a fur buyer out of Louisiana. He rolls through twice a year, and he bought everything green from me. And I said, okay, that's less work I have to do. Well, the first year, I turned in 10 cats, 25 coyotes, and probably 40 coons. And he wrote me a check for $400. And I was like, wow, that covers gas for a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the next year it was a couple cats and 25 coyotes and a whole bunch of great big raccoons. And that check cut in half to $217.
Ouch.
So last year, I filled the freezers. They're still full of fur. Mowing season started off really quickly on me, so I didn't get a chance to take care of anything. So I still have yet. I got to thaw everything out. I got to flush everything out. I got to dry everything. And I told myself, I'm going to get one freezer empty before I.
Yeah.
So that's the goal coming up here within the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be turning fur like a madman, trying to get as much done as I can.
We're lucky where we are. I mean, we have the best when it comes to coyotes and that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, it is nothing to average, over $100 for your coyotes.
Oh, wow.
Like for every coyote, so you might have some that go 180, 190, and you might have some that go $100 less than that, but you'll average over $100 for all of them, but you're mowing lawns and I've got about 8 inches of fresh snow to shovel. So
yeah, most definitely. We only hit like 2 months. About 2 months is about all you really get for really good prime, thick undercoat, long guard hair. And then they start rubbing because you get 1 week of 60-degree weather after it's been 30 for a month. And it just changes everything. It really, really does.
Yeah. And 30 isn't very cold.
Yeah. Down here in West Texas, we had that freeze in February. We had people freeze to death.
I know. I was just astounded talking to people.
It was crazy.
Yeah. I talked to an old fella. Where the hell were we? We were driving to Fort Davis. And so what's the name of the little town where they launched Captain Kirk into space there? It was so funny.
I couldn't tell you.
Well, it was, he went up in that Jeff Bezos rocket ship there. That happened while we were there. And it was funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, we were listening to the local radio station and they were informing everybody that the municipal dump was closed. The local landfill was closed until the rocket ship came back down. What was the name? There's a restaurant there, Chewy's Restaurant, Mexican restaurant. And that was the big thing with Madden, John Madden, because he would never fly. He always drove through there in his bus and that kind of stuff. It was Chewy's Restaurant all the time. They have this shrine to him there. I forget the name of the town. Goodness sakes. Anyway, there's this old weazened up fellow there sitting there having a burger and a Coke while we stopped to get something to drink before we left the town and headed for Fort Davis. And he heard us talking to the counter girl and he says, y'all not from around here, are you? I says, no, we're not. And so we got talking. He says, he was talking about how they had some pretty cold weather last year and all that kind of stuff. And I says, buddy, we call that a nice Tuesday. And he says, where are you from?
Exactly.
So I told him where we were from. And he says, I've about outlived my ability for that weather.
Yeah, that's for sure. We had, they cut the electricity is what the biggest problem was.
Yeah.
And when they cut the electricity, they cut a lot of the water, the city water got shut down too. So, I mean, granted, where I'm at, I'm outside of city limits, thank God. And I'm on a different water source than the city as well. And I lost power for 30 minutes. It was the worst 30 minutes of my life, I swear to God. But I had plenty of firewood. and that's what I did during the whole deal. I drove around and checked on my clients and I checked on friends and family and stuff like that. Made sure everybody had firewood, everybody had water. because driving on ice, growing up in Pennsylvania, you kind of learn how to do that
Yeah.
on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So I had no issues, but we had some elderly people go take their dog out back and slip on the ice and fall, and then nighttime came, and that was it. And it was pretty sad. Not a lot of people checking on each other enough. They did, but they didn't check on each other enough.
Just not used to it.
Not used to it at all.
Yeah.
There's no salt trucks or sand trucks. They put down a brine on the road, and and that's about it.
And that's only good till about freezing, and then
exactly.
beyond that, it takes a lot more. I know we've tried everything under the sun up here, and it just comes down to plain old rock salt and a little bit of gravel, and it can get too cold for that too. You get down to 40 below, nothing works. Actually, at about 25 below, something like that, pretty much nothing.
And we're looking at another pretty severe winter this year. I mean, the old timers tell me, when the mesquite trees don't produce beans, we got a cold winter coming. Well, I saw one mesquite tree this year that had beans on it, and I see millions of mesquite trees in my travels every week.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because we were there by Fort Davis, and it was the first time in 6 years that they had beans on their mesquite trees. They had 15 inches of rain there over 3 months, and he's talking about how glorious it looked. I was thinking, you could have filmed the moon landing here. I mean, it looked pretty bleak, right?
Yeah,
that high desert. We're about 300 foot on the desert floor, and I thought it's pretty bleak looking. But he says it was so lush, and I don't know what your country looks like where you are. We around there, it was so bleak, and there was really not a lot of cattle or anything. They had 120 head of cattle on 10,000 acres. And it's like, that's just about as worthless as a Walmart parking lot. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. We had that on 1,200 acres.
Yeah. That was, I was just shocked that 10,000 acres. I said, well, how many head of cow on your 120? It's like, wow, that is worthless.
And they're all pretty hungry, I imagine.
Well, no, they were doing really good. The
they were
the blue grama grass, blue buffalo grama grass or whatever was up to their bellies because they had so much rain. But he says, we don't put no more extra on because this is what we crop in bad, or how we graze it in bad years. So it's just different. It's just different. Go to different places, right?
Definitely
and see that kind of stuff. But I want to talk about, you were talking about thermal and about helicopter hunting and for hogs, and that has to be about as much fun as you can have with your pants on.
It is. I want to tell you the helicopter side of the house, I haven't had any experience with it, but the ranches that I do trap, the owners they're all doctors, business owners, very, very well off folks, and they spend a lot of money on their property to make sure it's where they need to be to continue the operation. So they have friends up in Fort Worth area that have helos, and they bring in clients, and I know on a couple ranches they killed 400 pigs in 2 days, 3 days.
Wow.
And I said, well, what'd you do with them all? He said, they're all laying out there, so they're all getting eaten by coyotes. So get out there and get after them. And that's exactly what I found. I mean, they don't last very long. These coyotes, I never thought a coyote would eat a pig.
Why not?
And just because there's so many of them, they'll eat a deer. I'll tell you what, you catch a deer in a snare or something of that nature. When you get to it, it's a murder scene.
Yeah.
It's just hair, bone, and that's it. But I never saw that with the pigs. And last year, when I got my thermal, I went out and I started shooting hogs off a wheat field. And we probably had 16 or 18 of them laying there dead. And we pulled down to the next field and then turned around, and we were probably gone an hour, and we were coming back, and I got the thermal out. And I said, let me check his field again to see if the pigs came back out. And there was dead pigs laying everywhere. And I saw a coyote running with a dead piglet in his mouth. I saw another coyote chewing on a dead hog. I was like, oh my goodness, they're cleaning up already. and even the rancher said, he goes, don't even worry about the pigs in the field. He goes, the wheat's still growing, and the coyotes will have them gone by the time the wheat's ready to be harvested.
Oh yeah.
And he wasn't wrong at all. It was amazing.
I got buddies who, especially over in Saskatchewan, where they can use domestic animals for bait. Here in Alberta, we can't. We have to pick up roadkill or whatever, like moose, deer, and elk that get run over, that kind of stuff. But over there, they can use dead animals and transport them to bait sites, that kind of stuff. And I know one guy who works off of a farrow operation, and so they have all. You would not believe how many piglets die. Like, I mean, literally, he fill a truck box. He has a truck box full of dead piglets and afterbirth and all that kind of stuff, and that's what he shovels out at his bait sites. Like, you have to have a fairly strong stomach to be able to do it.
That's for sure.
But it works good.
Sure.
It's good bait. It's great bait.
Yeah.
And I mean, most of the time with bait, you're feeding the birds anyway. Because you want the birds they're making a big ruckus, and that's what brings the coyotes.
Hey folks, Rich from Trapping Inc. TV here, and it's no secret that I'm a big fan of coffee. Our friends at Old Smokes smoke roast their coffee beans over wood fires. You have no idea how good coffee can taste until it's smoked coffee. Did you know that studies have shown that just the smell of fresh coffee can boost brain activity? Yeah, it's that good. Sandy and I have teamed up with Old Smokes Coffee to make our own Trapping Inc. coffee blend. Let me introduce you to Wolverine, an ultra dark roast coffee bean smoked over maplewood fires. This is the pure, uncut trapper's fuel that keeps us laughing and trapping all day long. If you'd like to try our special blend, you can find it at www.trappinginc.com/shop. If dark roast isn't your thing, Old Smokes has 5 different coffee roasts from light to extra dark, each roasted over a different wood for a unique flavor. Right now, you can order from their online store and use our promo code RICH, that's RICH, and get 10% off your entire order. Just go to www.oldsmokescoffee.com. That's OLE smokescoffee.com and use the promo code RICH. That is promo code RICH for 10% off your entire order. And now let's get back to today's show.
Out here, it's if you shoot a deer with a rifle or a bow and you don't recover that deer within a couple hours, your chances of coming up on half a deer are pretty high.
Yeah,
they really, really are. If that deer dies and you don't recover that deer within 6 hours, your chances of coming up on half a deer are pretty good.
Well, it's that way in the farmland around here in the agriculture, but not in the bush. The bigger, you have much bigger coyotes in the bush. My biggest coyote ever was 42 pounds, and that was in the bush. He was looked like half a wolf kind of thing. Well, literally is about half an average wolf, but they have to be that big to compete out there. Our farmland coyotes, are 30 pounds would be a dead on average for them, but they I can't imagine, you grew up watching deer hunting and that on TV, and they would leave that deer overnight. I got to think that bow hunters were the worst hunters ever, because they would take and run an arrow through it. They'd watch it fall, but we're going to leave it there overnight. Make sure, once I got into TV, I realized that was all just BS. But anyway, because around in any of the farm areas, like from where I live and south, right down through southern Alberta, it'll be 8 overnight. Coyotes would find it. It would definitely be 8 overnight. So,
Mother Nature takes care of itself pretty efficiently. Very efficiently.
You're talking about you're starting to get more Californians and that kind of stuff moving into Texas. And so you're going to start having that clash. But because everything is so privately owned, there's not much they can do about it, right?
Exactly.
Not like what they did in New Mexico. But it was so funny. I think you'd mentioned Meat Eater, and I think it was Meat Eater that just had out a video. There's a golden eagle sitting on the back of an antelope and eating it. Yeah. And every time it would
alive.
See,
that's Mother Nature.
Absolutely, that's Mother Nature, and it would bawl every time that it would the eagle had its claws sunk into it. There's blood running down the sides of it, and that eagle would go down and hook a hunk out with its beak, and the thing would bawl, and people would say, well, why doesn't it roll over? Well, it doesn't know to roll over. Why doesn't it run under a fence? It doesn't know to run under a fence. It's an animal. It's not a sentient being. And I do a lot of seminars. One of the biggest things that people want, two animals that people are most fascinated with, Wolverine and wolves. Yeah. And so when you talk about wolves, I try to explain to them that it's just a fact of nature that whenever that animal, quits trying to get away, all animals die from either suffocation or from loss of blood. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so when like a pack of wolves, they actually just wear an animal down. It's gruesome. Most often when you hit where wolves have got on a moose, the kill scene will be half a mile to a mile long, and you will in the end, that moose will be tripping over its own innards and stuff like that. Like, mm-hmm. I mean, it's gruesome. And whenever it quits moving, whenever it quits trying to run, they don't no longer try to kill it with those teeth. They start eating. They're feeding right away. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, they're an animal. There's in their world, there's none of this morality that we have. I was hunting this. We were hunting a nice buck deer. We ended up getting it a couple weeks later, but there was a nice buck, and my wife wanted a nice buck, and she's got a nice one on the wall. But we were out right until after dark and came back through, and next morning we go out, and there's this calf moose that got caught in a fence, jumping a fence, and it had been ate. Okay. And it mm-hmm. hadn't been there the night before. So this is literally the overnight kind of thing, right? And I walk up and I look at it, and I mean, its back end is ate right up to its rib cage. Okay. And it's like a minus, so about 25 below kind of thing, right? I look at it and it blinks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It was like, I've killed more stuff than the Black Death. I mean, I have killed a lot of things in my life, but I could not kill that fast enough after that. Yeah. And I could have took my knife out and cut its throat, but I shot it in the head. Like, I mean, it was to me, the horror that animal went through for hours, caught in that fence and they just eating on it was just, but it's not that way in the animals world. It's not that way at all. No, it's not. And I explain this to people, and you watch people, and I says, well, those teeth aren't very efficient at you might think they are, but a wolf just walk up and go swing its head and hamstring an animal, or it cut its throat or whatever. That's not how it works. No. Wolves start by, they start jumping up and they grab a hold with their teeth on the back of the rump where the animal can't hit it with horns or kick it or whatever, and they hang off of it. And eventually that animal just can't run with them hanging off it anymore. And then they start in there and they start ripping and tearing it. But it is a gruesome, long death scene. Like, I mean, there's nothing sweet about it. People talk about trapping, and there's 4 ways that an animal dies. He either dies of starvation, he gets ate by something else, he gets a disease and dies, or he dies in my trap. Now, my trap, in my trap in Canada, like Fisher and Martin and that we picked up on the weekend, 120 seconds, and they're dead. My time comes, I'll take the 120 seconds.
All day long.
Yeah. Like people say, well, they can die of old age. Well, no, they don't, because you can look up any study you want on Google. I mean, once again, here we have all the information of the world right there. Look it up, and it'll say in those studies that the amount of animals that die of old age is insignificant, is not worth mentioning. So they got 4 ways to die again. They can get ate, they can starve to death, they can get disease. Not a pleasant deal, is it?
I actually found one that died of old age 2 weeks ago in Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
A big white tail. He had, 6-inch bases, and he was all deformed. He had junk everywhere. And it was an absolute fantastic find with a headlamp in the dark. I was like, what? Oh my goodness, look at this guy. And it's just, as soon as I saw it, I was like, how rare is this?
Yeah.
This is probably one of the coolest things I'll ever find in the woods. And I'm in the woods a lot.
And you don't know what actually killed him, whether he actually died, did drop dead of old age of a heart attack. We were hunting one time in New Zealand, and Sandy shoots a really nice red stag, and it just turns and it gets over into this gully. And of course, the gullies there are just like straight up and straight down.
Straight
right?
down.
So it was like, oh no, it made it into the gully. And so we go over there, and we're of course, we got our heads down, we're tracking and that, looking for blood and all that. We find it, and the one guide there, he says, see here, what the bloody hell is that smell? And we start looking around, and here the hillside was like this, and there were of course trails along this hillside, right? Where the animals would walk in that, and there was this big manuka tree, and here was this big, it was like a 400-inch stag, and he'd been rubbing his horns on this manuka tree, slipped on the mud on the trail, and hung himself off this tree, hung by his horns. Okay, so he hung by his horns, and you could see where he clawed away at the bank and everything, and horrible. He would have died of probably of dehydration. Would have gone.
Yeah.
It would have been lack of water that would have killed him. But he would have maybe took a week or whatever to die. It's just,
oh yeah.
You look at it. I mean, Mother Nature is not some blue-haired old lady, baking cookies.
Oh no, she's the meanest one on the block. That's for sure. She is. She has the wrath of God, and it's amazing. The older I get, the more I pay attention.
Yeah.
And you see the little things. And, if I walk by an oak tree that's, as big around as my desk in West Texas, the first thing that pops in my mind isn't, boy, that's a lot of firewood. It's, I wonder what kind of Indians played on this oak tree,
Oh my
things
God.
like
And
that.
by the way, we have no oak here. So, I mean, I got to see like actual, I think you call them acorns. We call them acorns, but I seen them on a bur oak, and I seen them on a red oak, and that was just the coolest damn thing ever.
Yeah.
And I'm a big firewood guy, so I looked at them, thought there's a lot of cool firewood.
That's a lot of cool firewood.
What's your country look like there? You say you're north of Abilene?
So yeah, most of the property that I run is north of Abilene. Abilene is flat for the most part. It's little rolling hills.
Like Pecos?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I've been down South Texas into like Sanderson and Ozona and Pendle and stuff like that, and you got those big valleys and such. We don't have that. We have there's some areas, you'll have a mesa that's might be 60 feet tall.
Okay.
You'll have little mountains here and there, but mostly it's really flat.
Okay.
You'll have like your Pecos. Rocks, rocks and sandy areas, and then you'll have your little real sandy areas with shinnery, which is the thickest stuff you've ever seen in your life. And but it's not like Amarillo flat where you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. But it's you probably get about half a day here.
Still enough.
Still enough, yeah.
So do you have big trees then, or are they just in river valleys, or what? No big trees?
No, you'll see them in the river valleys. You'll see the big giant ones in the river valleys, and they're very rare. I've seen them in my deer lease down in Coleman, Texas. I've seen some really, really beautiful giant trees. But there's, I tell people, they said, where do you live? I said, I live where Lowe's gets all their wood. Because there isn't a straight tree around here. I've got 5 summit climbing deer stands, and I never get to use them unless I haul them out of state. So everything here, ground blind, tower blind, tripod, things like that. But the lack of water really plays a big part in it. We either get a whole bunch of it, or we don't get any at all. It's very rare that we had a pretty wet year this year.
Yeah.
And one day we get 8 inches. That really affected my dove fields because we couldn't get in there and plow them for 3 weeks. And then by then it was too late. right on the river bottom. You see some flash flooding. One of the things I tell people about the weather in Abilene is whenever I was active duty and I moved here, I got my sponsor letter. And one of the phrases in the sponsor letter was, turn around, don't drown. And I said, I'm thinking I'm going to West Texas, Kevin Costner, Tin Cup kind of stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Turn around, don't drown. And then we had flash flood. We had a whole bunch of rain come through and all the roads are covered in water. And I was like, yeah, I can see why people, do that. You get that little low car with the intake down really low, and now you need a new motor. I mean, you see that quite a bit.
People can be so stupid. I mean, the same thing happens here. You'll have once or twice a year in the summertime, you'll have a thunderstorm, a good cell will hit like Edmonton, and it's a city of 1 million people or whatever. But you have places where there's an overpass, and so the other road underneath dips down, goes like that. Well, guess what? That fills full of water. 3-4 feet of water, and it'll be on the local news, and there's somebody with the vehicle drowned out in the water.
Yeah, like, the record guys love that, I imagine.
Yeah, it's like, how dumb can you be, man?
It's just it's paying attention to the little things.
Yeah,
like the weather app on your phone.
People today, though, I mean, never before has the term common sense is not so common ever meant as much as it did today. Like you're just out there all the time. You're rescuing. I live in the north where, Jesus, you should. I mean, Darwin should have made sure that you're not surviving. But we're so padded and protected anymore that, I mean, idiots are surviving out here, right?
Oh yeah.
And where you're in winter. Sandy had one of the people that she was taking care of had went to Edmonton for a weekend, and they come back, and I mean, weather rolls in here, right? It hit like 46 below, and they still come home at 46 below. I would sit wherever the hell I was, and they come home, and their car froze solid on them. Like, I mean, your antifreeze will even gel and everything at those temperatures, because then you've also got a windshield on top of that, right? You're traveling at 60 miles an hour, and anyway, it froze solid on them. They didn't even have a pair of boots or a heavy coat or anything in the car. It was like, if there was ever a Darwin moment, that was it. Like, good Lord. And they got, of course, the Lord takes care of idiots and fools, and somebody came along and took care of them, right? But like,
well, he needs something to laugh at. That's what the deal is.
Yeah.
I'm teaching my kids how to drive now, and it's we really got to pay attention.
You're just starting because you still got a lot of hair left.
Oh yeah, well, it's leaving rapidly. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was trying to like all of the people in the Wild Sheep Club that I'm doing this magazine for. They're all my kids' ages, right? They're in their mid-30s and all that kind of stuff, and they don't have too big of an idea. I mean, they know their job, but they don't have a lot of life experience on the outside of whatever their job is. And they're constantly after you. Well, how do you do this? How do you do that? When did I become the tech guy? I mean, when I graduated high school, there weren't even computers, there weren't, I literally graduated high school 2 years before you were born. And yet I'm the tech guy, right? I said to them, I said, but I'm so busy that if I had any hair, it would have caught on fire 2 days ago. I was like, no, yeah, it's funny. Nick, this has been a blast. We have talked for an hour and a half, and I feel like we could just keep on talking. We've got a lot of common. We're gonna have to do this again real soon.
Oh yeah, definitely. I want to plug the Texas Trappers Association.
You go right ahead.
They put on a good rendezvous this fall, and I'm looking forward to the spring rendezvous. I went to the spring rendezvous up in the north part of Texas, and I'm right in the middle of 3 different districts. So I can go one county over, I'm in 4. I go another county over, I'm in the other district, and one county north, I'm in a different district.
Oh, cool.
So I kind of trapping all 3, but I'm looking to get more involved once I move on professionally into real estate and stuff like that, I think I'm going to get more involved in the Texas Trappers Association for sure.
Well,
And
we all
that's
have
a key.
to. We
We
all
do.
We all have to, and you have to answer those questions. God knows I answer a lot of them every day by email and everything else, but it is our responsibility because nobody else is going to do it. Nobody's going to do it for us.
Yeah. My dad tried to give me a whole bunch of muskrat traps and stretchers and stuff like that when I was home. And I said, I can't use these. He goes, well, what am I going to do with them? I said, get a hold of the PA Trappers Association, donate them.
Yeah.
And get these kids doing it. I said, that's a key.
Absolutely.
I said, because it's not going to be there if you don't.
And that's what every kid starts on: squirrels and muskrats. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. I heard the kids that started on squirrels this year got paid pretty well.
They sure did. And do you know why that is? It's because all the mink got COVID.
Yep. That's what I heard.
And everybody talks about, there's just no money in fur and all that. And I keep saying that our biggest problem is ranching, is fur ranchers, and reasons being is that they have used us as an excuse. We're their justification because they use wild fur and they help the trappers and all that. But no, all of a sudden when there's no female mink around, which are the lesser quality animals, right? When there's no female mink around to make those platens, the inner linings and that for jackets, now all of a sudden they're using squirrel and muskrat. And look at the money that happened last year. People were getting $3 for a squirrel.
I wish they'd use raccoons because I could use more than $2 for a raccoon.
I don't know why a raccoon is not worth money. That is such beautiful fur.
Back in the day, we used to take a whole raccoon. My dad talked about it. My granddad talked about it. They would trap the coon, dispatch him, and take him to the fur buyer, and they would get a $20 bill.
Yeah,
and that's in the late 70s.
Yeah,
mid to late 70s. $20 was a hell of a lot more than what $20 is right now.
Oh my God, especially where inflation's going. Your genius over in DC is taking care of that.
Oh yeah. Let's go, Brandon.
I love that one. Well, buddy,
that was one of the funniest things I've seen.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna let you go, and I want to thank you. Did you have a like a Texas Trappers Association website or something you wanted to put out there? Or
oh no, I don't believe so. I don't have anything. I'm really, if you think about it, I'm kind of new to the game. I've been in it 4 or 5 years, really hitting it hard, and I've gotten some of my buddies involved in it. Their wives aren't too happy about it. But you can always get that grin when you mention Hellfire and the mailman, or some gusto in the mailman. My mailman hates me significantly. I will tell you that right now, because not only do I have a really long distance from my mailbox to my front door, I buy things by the dozen on a regular basis. So, carrying all them packages, they get kind of sick of me. Plus the smell is pretty bad too.
Well, it's funny because we have a rural post office, and with the post office box, the rural post office there, so it ways away. They have 2 numbers on speed dial, 911 and me.
And you. That's for sure. That is for sure. Yeah, I use I've gotten some really rank stuff in the mail. The K911 is a new bait coming out at Apparition Scent Company in Pennsylvania, and then I use a lot of Dunlap stuff. And the Gusto, I bought Gusto this year for the first time. And, we have friends over, they walk through the garage and like, you got a skunk in your garage? And I was like, I got one in the freezer, but that's not it. And my wife's like, yeah, it just started smelling really bad. I said, oh, that's got to be that Gusto. And she's like, where is it? I said, it's in that ammo can inside of a Ziploc bag full of baking soda, inside of a mason jar, inside of the package it was shipped in. And my wife looks at me and she goes, I'm surprised our mail isn't strewn the whole way up and down this street. I just tell them that's a smell of money. That's what I tell them. It's not a lot of money. It's just a little bit of money.
All right, sir.
Rich, I really appreciate it, man. I really do. And you guys keep running the line, keep getting the kids involved, keep laughing. That's the key.
We are going to, and we're going to come back to the wonderful Republic of Texas. I tell you that.
Hey, let me know when you do, man. We'll get the thermal out and we'll go out at night and we'll raise some hell. And all of a sudden it'll be 3:00 in the morning and you'll be like, man, I'm not ready to go to bed. I said, near am I. Let's go get another one.
You got it, man. You take care. And for all of our friends out there, I hope you enjoyed our chat tonight, and maybe we'll see you down the line.